being an environmentally friendly company, you need to think of everything that you do operationally, product-wise. There's something called a life cycle analysis that actually determines how much carbon footprint you create making what you're doing. So if I'm creating more of a carbon footprint than I'm getting rid of, there's a problem.
Hello, and welcome aboard another episode of the Captain's Lifestyle Podcast. This is your captain speaking, Taylor Morgan. On today's episode, you guessed it, we have another special guest. His name is Tim Sperry. Tim is a scientist, entrepreneur, and founder of both Smog Armor and Carbon Limit, where him and his team are creating the most effective and profitable solutions to CO2 and air pollution. Tim, welcome to the show.
Taylor, thank you. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so let's start off with what I commented on your Instagram post about your amazing little experience that you had recently.
Yeah, no, that's actually in line with what your show is all about and what you guys are all about with performance and with just what you need to do to get there and those life hacks. My life hack is that I wake up every day between 4:30 and 5:30 and I'm on the beach for the sunrise, gratitude walk, my lofty questions. Buddha and the Badass brought that out. If you've read it, it's awesome. If you haven't, definitely check it out. It's amazing. And I happened to be out on the beach right before sunrise and I took my dog with me and my dog actually ran towards a turtle nest. So I'm right here in Boca Raton, right on the beach. And I saw a bunch of little small turtles at the top of the nest. It looked like a fox was trying to get at them and got at a few, unfortunately. And I touched them and they came out like a bunch of ants out of an anthill. And it was amazing. It was really, really, really cool to see the life and just, they literally got up, went into the water and started swimming. How they knew how to go to the water, maybe smell, maybe the sound. It was just an incredible sight. I called a couple of my neighbors over and they're like, man, I've been on the beach for 35 years trying to see this. And it's not something you see because it usually happens in the middle of the night. So it was just, it was awesome. It really just got me regrounded and thinking like, wow, like we need to do our part, all of us, to help maintain what we've got, which is one environment, and, destroying it for something that has, nothing to do with that. Just kind of motivated me even more to do what I'm doing. And it just keeps giving me more motivation to keep on. So it was really cool.
Yeah, well, one, I'm super jealous that you got to have that experience. I've only seen that on like the David Attenborough documentaries. That's awesome that you got to experience it up close. Yeah,
it was super cool. Super cool. And I walk every day on the beach though, and a lot of them get stuck in the seaweed. So the first picture is actually one that I pulled out of the seaweed. It's a leatherback, which these things are like, they have a wingspan that's like 20 feet long. They're super cool. So just like really amazing to be a part of that and ground yourself in the morning. And it's how can you have a bad day starting your day like that? So just really, really cool. It charges me right up.
You can't have a bad day starting like that, especially if you start your day on the beach, wherever you are, it's not a bad day. And speaking of leatherbacks, I interviewed the marine biologist who, that famous video I'm sure you've seen, pulling the straw out of the sea turtle's nose. I interviewed him. His name is Dr. Nathan Robinson, and his favorite species of turtle are the leatherbacks, just because, like you said, they're so massive. And they start out like these little babies that you saw and turn into these giant creatures. It's incredible. And
it's funny you mentioned that because he actually inspired me to do what I do on my walk back, which is I clean up trash on my walk back every day, about 2 miles of trash. And I always fill up at least one shopping bag full of plastic and garbage. And it's at least 20, 30 straws every day. And they're usually the really small ones. So it's something people say thank you for doing when I walk by. It makes me feel great, but it's like, it's my pleasure. I'm able to do it and I can help animals, take a better turn and also have someone enjoy a pristine beach. Like I'm going to do it every day. And it also charges me up. So I love that. That's Absolutely. Really cool. You got to talk to him.
Yeah. And I pick up trash every day too. And I promote that on social media. It's like, and the people who say thank you, it's like, yeah, you're welcome. Like, I'm happy to do it. I would do it if nobody said thank you, but you can do it too. Like just pick up one little piece of trash, like just on your way to the trash can, just pick it up, put it in your pocket, whatever. So don't just say thank you, like actually contribute and help out. It's sad that we have to do that. It's sad that we have to do that in the first place, but yeah, it's every little bit makes a difference.
Absolutely. No, I'm right on line with what you say there too. And yeah, I've had one or two people pick up trash and put it in my bag, and I'm like, all right, cool, thanks. But most of the people, yeah, you know, you try to lead by example, and I've converted a few walkers into trash picker-uppers. So you know, everyone doing their part just a little bit makes a big difference if there's a lot of us doing it.
Yeah, I'm glad you
thanks for what you do too.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of lag here, so sorry listeners for that, but we're going to push on. You mentioned leading by example. That is one of the core values of the Captain's Lifestyle program, is leading by example, because as you know, I coach impact-driven entrepreneurs, and a lot of times it can be difficult for those entrepreneurs because they're almost in new territory. A lot of the business owners and entrepreneurs out there are so focused on profit, and that is their only goal. Whereas these impact-driven entrepreneurs, they don't care so much about the profit. They want to make an impact. And that requires going a little bit against some of the traditional business advice, something that I'm sure you're quite familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And no, you're definitely right. You know, it's a lot of times we have to kind of refocus and think about, okay, well, let's make money, let's be profitable. But that's actually one of the really cool things that we're doing with Carbon Limit specifically, is that we're going out there to show other corporations, other entrepreneurs, and other people that you can take something as inherently bad as CO2 and convert it into something good, like a valuable byproduct. And we make really cool ones, and one really incredible one that is hard for most people to believe, but we're actually on a phase 2, Gen 2 with that one. So we can get into that whenever you want. But you're absolutely right. I think, you know, finding that model to really come out and say, okay, well, look, you know, we're impact, but we're profitable. So let's help other companies go that same direction. And I think that's when you hit critical mass. So it's finding that balance too.
Yeah. And usually once you focus on the impact, the profit comes, but it's not the other way around. Like if you focus on the profit and not your people or the planet, then that's when a business is not sustainable and it will crumble. I think the future of business, every single business of the future will have to put people and planet and people over profit. I think that's just going to become a prerequisite because people are aware of their buying decisions. And I am very excited to get into the products that you alluded to, because as I was saying before we started recording, I tried to do some research and I couldn't really dig that much up. So I'm excited for that. But I want to stick on your life hacks that you called them in, and your high performance habits, because this is what I'm trying to get out to more entrepreneurs. And I didn't even know this about you. I didn't even know that you were so aligned with what we're doing at the Captain's Lifestyle. Talk to us a little bit about how, like that morning walk specifically and going out and seeing the sunshine, how that allows you to better perform and stay productive in your two businesses.
Absolutely. So, I mean, first off, I walk out there bare feet. So I'm in wet sand. So I'm grounding myself, which just kind of takes everything. And first of all, I walk right out my door from my bed pretty much. As soon as I walk out of bed, like I'm already out the door. Like, I don't even know if I have clothes on, but you know, generally I do. So, but it's great. I start with the gratitude walk. So when you're thinking of what's good and you're thinking of what you're grateful for, it's really hard to not be in a good mood. So I start there always. And then I do what's called the lofty question. And essentially it's an interesting version of like a mantra, but it's not even close to a mantra. It's just really speaking like what I want into existence, and more that it's already there. And it has totally been a huge accelerator for what I've done. And then as I'm picking up the trash, you know, I'm realizing that I'm doing something good. So all of these things just kind of combine together to just give me this great positive energy. And I my one other big hack is I try, and my team figured this out already, and some other people did too, but not touching your phone in the morning for a couple hours, massive, huge. I don't get on social media. I don't get on my phone. I'm not looking at an email, not looking at, the second you do, like they pretty much control your energy and control what you're doing. So I generally don't touch my phone for about 3 hours in the morning. Sometimes my team will edge into me a little bit, but not touching my phone. And then 8 hours of sleep is a must. If I can get more, I'll take it. But sleep is so important. And I actually saw you had a podcast on that. And I'm on the same page as that. You know, a lot of people, oh, I work all night. I work really late. Well, I don't. I like to give myself some me time. I'll meditate, you know, I'll do something where I just disconnect a little bit, but I go to bed early, I wake up early, and I always line up for 8 hours. And that is a huge boost, a huge push for me.
Yeah. Well, geez, you're one of the best spokespeople for the Captain's Lifestyle program, and you haven't even gone through it. This is awesome. Yeah. Those three things, the morning ritual, whatever it is for you, which is perfect if you get to go ground yourself in the sand and the water, which reduces stress. It's amazing. In combination with gratitude, which I always say is one of the best drugs you'll ever take. Gratitude is amazing. And then combine that with the 8 hours of sleep at night for a more productive day. And then not touching your phone, I think, is huge and way overlooked, especially in modern society. Like, a lot of people are run by their notifications. Like, they're not living their life. The notifications are living their life. Right?
Exactly.
I had a former client who kind of half jokingly told me that his email was his alarm clock. Like, he would get woken up by his email notifications. And from morning till night, he was basically reacting to everything that would come up. And when he started working with me, he wondered, like, how am I going to be able to do this? I don't have any time for myself. And it's like, you don't have time because you're giving your time to everybody else. Everybody else is getting your time. I like to call notifications other people's priorities, right?
Yeah, no, that reactive mode, you're absolutely right. And that is a huge time vortex, and it's a huge energy vortex, because the other way I see it, and the other way I try to be mindful of, is you only can make a certain amount of good decisions in a day, right? And I don't want to spend those on what am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? You know, what am I going to look at on social media and be upset about or not, or happy about, or or, you know, have people like me. Like, you know, I don't really try to buy into that as much as possible, because my decisions are important. And because of my why, and because of my passion and my fulfillment with what I do, I want all my decisions to go there, because that's the way I'll get there as fast as possible. So I think that's huge. You know, people being mindful, you only have so many good decisions you can make in a day. Don't waste them on other people.
Yeah. Love that.
That are just all about, you know, taking your energy and being reactive to a stupid email. So yes.
That's one of the reasons why people like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, you know, regardless of what you think of them, you know, they wear the same thing almost every single day. It's not even a thought. Like, it's just boom, boom. Because like you said, decision-making fatigue is a real thing. Yeah, I'm sure we're both rocking our brands. Yep.
Yeah. And now it's easy to put on. I just throw something on. As long as I have something covering my bottom half, I'm good.
Yeah. Same with me. I would walk around shirtless, like to stores if I could. But yeah. All right. So now that we covered why it's so important to first take care of yourself before you can even have a thought of having a successful business, I think a lot of people have it backwards. They'll build the successful business and then work on themselves.
Yep.
That often leads to burnout. So now let's get into how your decisions to first take care of yourself have led you to create what you have with both Smog Armor and Carbon Limit. So Smog Armor is what I could find some information about, and that's the paints that you guys create, which I think is super cool. So let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I'll tie them both in because I essentially, my background was real estate. I ended up buying into a restaurant, and it just wasn't for me. It was a time vortex on everything I did, and I just put all my energy and life into it, and it wasn't fulfilling or passion for me, but that's my own personal choice. But when I was younger, I lost a couple family members to lung cancer because of someone else polluting their air. And ever since then, I've always had, some stigma about, a car with a big truck with a massive exhaust pipe and no regulator, trucks that were spewing out this, people and industries and, companies that we give our money to that are destroying our environment and our health, and we're paying them to do that. Like, that always got me. So I wanted to make a change. I wanted to make a shift. And like you said, a lot of people make these decisions backward as an entrepreneur. I'd always made it, and I've always been an entrepreneur with starting companies and creating products, and I love to create. And I was always thinking about it the wrong way. I always thought about it like, okay, what can I make the most money doing? What industry's hot right now? And how can I get myself to like it enough where those obstacles won't stop me and that I can continue to do it sustainably? Horrible idea. Let's face it, you can make money doing whatever you really want to do. You have to work at some harder than others. But, if you're not passionate about it, you're not fulfilled by it. And it's not your good reason why. Like, you're going to stop. You're going to get roadblocked at some point, whether it's now or in years. And then if you look back and you're like, wow, I spent these block of years doing something that I hated and something that meant nothing to me. That's worse than anything else, I think. And I'd spent a lot of time doing things that, I was helping people, with real estate. I created some other products and did a few things, which I enjoyed doing, but it wasn't really as fulfilling as what I do now. So then came in the idea for Smog Armor. I wanted to find a way to help reduce air pollution somehow. So visually, what I can see, because let's face it, most air pollution is invisible. And that actually translated into where the paint came into play. But what I could see was emissions coming from cars and trucks. So I'm like, there you go. I'm going to find a way to reduce emissions coming out of cars and trucks. So I came up with an idea to make an exhaust tip for cars and trucks. That's essentially like something you put on the end of your muffler. It's like a muffler filter. But in order to do that, I needed to find something that would filter out what's coming out of the exhaust pipe. And I first studied what all comes out of your exhaust pipe and what emissions get past your catalytic converter, which are quite bountiful. And CO2 is obviously one of the big ones as far as parts per million. So I wanted to find something at that point from nature that could help protect and improve nature. So I wanted to find something natural that kind of like activated charcoal, but activated charcoal's, not natural. There's a process to make it what it is, but something like that from nature, a mineral or something that would actually stop this emissions and capture these emissions coming out. And I found by doing this research over and over again that there are some naturally active minerals that actually have the ability to attract and neutralize air pollution. So I got really intrigued. I found out that this one specifically that we used, that we enhance and put into the actual exhaust tip, was used on the International Space Station for their air purification system, used on Chernobyl because of its ability to mitigate nuclear waste, cesium and strontium specifically. And then people actually use this as a supplement. It's a heavy metal detox in your body. Since it's not water soluble, if someone was to go to the hospital and they swallowed poison as well, they would put activated charcoal and this mineral together because it would sponge it in and just pass right through you. So I thought that was really cool. At this point, I went to Home Depot, went to Amazon to find all these parts to put together a filter that fit inside this little exhaust tip. And it worked to remove about 80 to 90% of the CO2 and the VOCs from the exhaust pipe of my car. I drive a Tesla now because I can't drive a car that creates air pollution, since I'm looking for solutions to air pollution, which is what my companies are all about. But at that point, I wasn't there. And it worked incredibly. I was super psyched. The only issue I ran into was that the life cycle of that filter was only about 3 to 6 months. Even though I drive a lot, it's probably 6 to just over 6 months for a regular driver. And I didn't want to create more waste. Being a mindful company, being an environmentally friendly company, you need to think of everything that you do operationally, product wise. How far is this being brought in? There's something called a life cycle analysis that actually determines how much carbon footprint you create making what you're doing. So if I'm creating more of a carbon footprint than I'm getting rid of, there's a problem. It's called greenwashing. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I wanted to find a way to extend that exhaust tip. And I found this really cool paint. It's with graphene. Familiar with graphene or heard of graphene?
Graphene? No.
Yeah. It's this really cool material. It's what they were going to use to build that space elevator. It's really conductive and it actually absorbs CO2. There was a paint company in Spain that made this paint, which it actually creates more of a carbon footprint than it gets rid of, but I won't mention their name, so we're good there. And I wanted them to send me some of that paint. See, maybe if I could paint the inside, I could extend the life long enough to have a viable product. And they didn't want to send to America. They didn't sell to Americans. I offered them $300. They said no. Then I offered them $500. They said no. And that was the end of the conversation. I was pissed off, but it gave me that light bulb moment. What if I can take and micronize this active natural mineral that I was using and put it into paint, because it gives everyone the opportunity at that point, if it works, to paint their home, paint their business, and you can reduce your carbon footprint, you can improve the quality of the air, and you're not creating hazardous air pollution in the process of buying a common paint, which generally are full of chemicals. And it gives that new paint smell in your place when you paint with it. But we're brainwashed to think that that's good. It's really inherently horrible for you. It's really bad. And for performance purposes, if you have too much VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, which are a result of a lot of different chemicals that are made, even some natural byproducts as well. But those are really bad for our health, our respiratory system as well. And in our homes, which we've done a great job at making very energy efficient, we're trapping all of these. Most homes are super energy efficient, better electric bills, cooler, great, but you're trapping all the CO2 and all the VOC unless you have a really good exchange, which most people don't. And if you do have too much, we're in our homes a lot. I'm not. I'm always outside. I'm on my balcony all the time, or I'm on the beach. Mm-hmm. So if you're breathing in CO2, heavy amounts of CO2, it makes you lethargic. It actually decreases your cognitive abilities to make a good decision. So that's why people in these bullpens and these tight offices, they're tired, they need coffee. They're really operating with like a foggy brain. And actually, there was a great Harvard Business Review that did a study that said for $10 an employee to improve the air quality in a business, they saw a $6,500 return annually per every employee, just by improving the air quality. And they also had similar studies that showed kids went from a C school to an A school just with better air quality. And we can't see it, so it's not like our walls are smoking and we're like, holy shit, we got to do something about that smoking wall. It's actually smoking VOCs, you just can't see it. And your paint, a common paint, will off-gas VOCs, chemicals, into the air in your home for 6 months, and some up to the life of the paint, which is really bad. And it's not good for us. So our main objective, I then was on a mission to make a paint, and I had friends come over during this period, and I was making like paint samples. I found a paint manufacturer. It took me a few months because no one really understood what I was trying to do, and I finally found someone locally in Florida that would do it for me and actually create this with me. And I had these little paint things. No one knew what I was doing at that time. I had friends come over and they're like, Tim's crazy. He's playing with paint in his room. He's making these paint samples. And, now they're like, he wasn't crazy at all. So we took about 6 months to make the final formula. And then we had to find a lab that would test to see, okay, we integrated this. Now it's a nanotechnology because we made it smaller than 100 microns, which actually breaks it below that barrier. And we integrated it into the most non-toxic, zero VOC paint that's super healthy for you, very high performance, that you can paint in your home, outside of your home, in your office. And we had to find a lab that would test how much air pollution it would actually absorb. So Not many labs out there I found that test to see how much air pollution your paint can remove. So I had to research methodologies to find a lab to say, okay, well, look, if you use a thermogravimetric analysis test and you have a mass spectrometer or gas chromatography system, you can find this. And I finally got a lab to do it, and took them like 3 weeks. I'm just like, now it's almost like a year, going on a year that I've been working on developing this product, the impact over profits, as we started talking about. And I finally get the lab results. We're sitting at Whole Foods because we were either a Starbucks cafe or a Whole Foods team at that point, working to figure things out. And I got the lab results, and my COO was sitting next to me, and open it up. I'm dedicated to read every single line of this thing to be like, okay, this is it. He looked right on the bottom. He's like, holy shit, 95.1% reduction of air pollution in 1 hour. I was like, damn it, but yes. So super exciting. We tested for the most commonly occurring VOCs in our homes are generally formaldehyde, acetone, benzene. There's a few others. We tested for the 5 most commonly occurring, and formaldehyde's a really bad one for you. It's in glues, adhesives. Pressed wood furniture can off-gas these chemicals for up to 20 years. It's pretty scary. So it removed up to 95.1% of that within an hour from our paint. And we're like, done. Time to go, time to brand, time to do this, time to do that. And what we realized is that we couldn't really define our company at that point. We weren't like, okay, well, we're this kind of company, because there really wasn't a kind of company like ours. And we didn't want to be a paint company. And we're not a paint company. We're actually, we're finding solutions to air pollution. We use nature-based negative emission technologies that we invent. So the byproduct and the technology behind the paint is actually this natural nanotechnology. And when we did the lab test to find how much CO2 came out of it, we realized that, wow, this is actually incredible for reducing CO2. So then we realized that it's not the paint, but the technology, and the technology can be integrated into other products, which is what we're doing right now. We just got our first round of lab tests back on our ink integration. We've integrated this into ink. So paper for flyers, for magazines, for newspapers. You can have an air purifying carbon offsetting ink. And the test results are incredible. Then we put it into cardboard. Test results, amazing. How many people experience a cardboard box in their life now? And, shipped to their home or products in it. It reduces, this is the first carbon negative shipping box. So as it ships, it's reducing carbon footprint. But best of all, if you're buying a crappy product, which I hope you don't, because coming from China, a lot of them are made unregulated. So you have this off-gassing chemical-filled product. It's actually eliminating and neutralizing those as it's shipping too. So you're not opening up a box full of chemicals. And right at that point, we decided to start licensing the technology and going to carbon limit, which we've taken a derivative of that technology, reformatted it, and made. And that's why you haven't seen anything, because we really haven't put anything out there. We just got accepted into an incredible accelerator and got a really amazing backing by a company that is really all about the environment, all about bringing in these environmental solutions and innovations. So we have full access to lab. I've got to move there for a couple months and develop the rest of our direct air capture machine, which is a big shipping container powered by solar panels that brings in atmospheric CO2. So you put it on the side of the expressway or the end of the runway for an airport, and it's actually bringing in and reducing the CO2 from the air, and we turn it into cement.
Wow. First off, yeah. Wow. Wow. That goes above and beyond what I thought Smog Armor and Carbon Limit were. That is fascinating. Just wow. I'm speechless. Congratulations on all of that, by the way. This happened all recently, within the last year, correct?
Yeah. We launched about a year ago with Smog Armor, and at the beginning of the year, we started with Carbon Limit. And we're all about taking CO2 from the air and putting it in the roads that we walk and drive on every day. But what's really cool is the revenue model from it is actually really interesting. When you capture CO2, you actually can create a carbon credit, which is issued a permit number, kind of like the VIN number on your car. And you can sell those on a voluntary market. We got an RFP from a really, really large tech company to buy our carbon credits already. And those can be sold to offset their carbon footprint, or there's a mandatory market that California has, cap and trade, where companies are allowed to release a certain amount of CO2, and then they have to buy credits to offset what they've done above their limit, or they can sell and trade them. But the government also provides a tax credit, which is just money for every carbon credit we create. And then as we're capturing the CO2 into our carbon tech filters, we're selling the cement aggregate, the net zero cement aggregate, to cement companies to reduce their carbon footprint, store the CO2, and then we get paid for that as well. So taking something really bad, making it really good. And then, there's the really crazy byproduct. And there's a few other ones we can make from it as well. But on Gen 2, when we figure out a good system, a lot of direct air capture companies like Climate Works, Carbon Engineering, those are the two big ones that have big facilities that capture it. They capture it into chemical animate solutions. It actually uses a lot of energy because you have to heat it to desorb it. When we find a way to desorb it, because we're using a nature-based membrane technology that just brings it into this natural active mineral that we've enhanced and also integrated with a few other cool things. But when we find a way to desorb it, we can actually make non-blood, man-made, sustainable diamonds from it.
Wow.
So 20 tons of CO2 that we take out of the air becomes a 1 carat man-made non-blood diamond, sustainable diamond that you can wear your carbon footprint or give your carbon footprint to your girlfriend or your wife and say, hey, look, you have 4 years of carbon footprint on your ears or on your necklace or, bling on your shirt, on your neck, whatever. It's something that tells a story. It's something that makes people feel connected too, because I just took my whole, we were on Clubhouse talking about it, and someone from, I think, Golden Globes reached out and they're like, hey, can you do that for one of the celebrities? They want to wear their whole life's carbon footprint on their neck and do it for the red carpet. And I'm like, well, yeah, just come back to us in maybe another season or two. So, but it's just a cool thing because it's bringing the invisible and making it visible and showing people something different. Because right now it's kind of like computers before Apple. Everything's super antiquated. It's this big square box. There's really, there's carbon capture companies out there, but they're not doing anything in a meaningful public way. And we want to do it in a meaningful public way that helps promote the companies, helps promote the environment and education at the same time.
Well, guys, this is what happens when you combine a scientist and the entrepreneurial spirit. You get blood diamonds made out of recycled carbon. Wow. That's, I don't even know where to take it from here. We could go so many different directions. Wow. Yeah. This is, I think, one of the first episodes where I've just been like completely mind blown, because I think I couldn't do a lot of that research before because there's not a lot of stuff out there. That just was crazy. But I want to touch on the VOCs because I think a lot of people don't understand like what VOCs are and then what they come from. So they're in almost every like household product, like carpet. You mentioned the pressed wood, so things like couches or desks or anything like that, and it becomes a real big problem when you're remodeling and you're taking all that paint off that has all the VOCs in it, and then it's getting into the air, right? But I was going to say, you're right. Except for your paint, which is, actually why you eating the VOCs. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So VOCs can cause headaches, fatigue, liver and kidney damage, because those are your body's detox organs. And they can even potentially contribute to cancer. So some pretty big reasons why you should be mindful of VOCs.
Yeah, no, you're right, Taylor. You're absolutely right. And what most people don't realize either is that fresh scent that your cleaning solution makes. You know, your cleaners at home, even your personal care products, including shampoos, everything else. Those are all airborne chemicals that are released from your products. So all of these things, and don't get me started on new car smell, because I just can't. Like,
You don't like those
I
little
have super
tree
sensitive
fresheners?
lungs, so I'm like a barometer for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, well, even the car in the first place, it's essentially we're sniffing glue. You know, they're adhesives that are just off-gassing. So we're getting high, and we have been socially brainwashed and programmed to believe, hey, this is good. And yeah, so it's really bad for us. We cannot see them. That's the other problem. And really, there's not enough press and media that just outlay the dangers. And one other thing too, when you go to the store, when you go to Home Depot, when you go to shop, grocery store, all the products that you buy that have these chemicals in them, they're not really regulated to the point where, hey, what I'm buying is good for me, healthy for my home, healthy for the planet, my pets, and people. They're all really bad. Some of them have a small warning label. Some of them aren't required to put any label on it at all. And that was the big thing we found with the paint industry, is that common paints have been made for so long that we're used to all these chemicals, and it's just kind of accepted. But there's really not a regulation that says, hey, you can do this. You can't claim to not have it if you do. Although there's very few regulations that or agencies that may follow up on you. But these are a big problem. Like, I use essential oil cleaners. I try to be as mindful. Like, you can buy low emission construction materials, low emission furniture. So yeah, VOCs are bad, and not many people really understand them. And for performance and for health, you really want to be mindful.
Yep. You want to pull out all the stops. I interviewed Dr. Ali Cohen on my podcast, author of Non-Toxic, a guide to healthy living in a chemical world. And she mentioned on the show that the United States is one of the only countries that does not require any regulation whatsoever in personal care products. And that's ridiculous, because artificial fragrances are endocrine disruptors, meaning that it messes with your hormones. The VOC, she mentions in this book, I marked it, she mentions to use indoor paints that are VOC free. And people just aren't aware of the amount of environmental toxins that exist. Like you said, even if you go into like a Whole Foods, people just think like every product in there is good, but it's not. Like, you got to look into it. What is actually in there? So the essential oil cleaners, that's fantastic. Things like thieves oil, the tea tree oil, that's another good one. Basically avoid anything with an artificial fragrance. So those little air fresheners that you get, any sort of cologne, Febreze, like that's all, it's all bad stuff. Like, it causes headaches and fatigue, all that stuff. And so you're saying that the Smog Armor paint reduces up to 95% of that?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So our lab tests show that it's like a magnetic sponge it's negatively charged, and positive ions in the air are CO2, VOCs, odors, formaldehyde is one of them. So it's actually a molecular binding process where the wall is capturing these VOCs. And, a lot of people ask, will it change the color of the paint? No, it doesn't. And it will not release it unless your walls get over about 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know many walls that get over 400 degrees Fahrenheit that aren't on fire. So if you do have hot walls like that, there's probably another problem that you should deal with. So what's great is that it will capture it all the way up to the saturation point. So this is like turning your walls into HEPA filters for could be 3 to 5 years, just depending on how your home is. If you have a 1-bedroom apartment, 20 people living in there, the amount of CO2, in there will saturate the walls faster than anything else. Versus, being in a home where you're using essential oil cleaners, you're mindful, you open a window every once in a while, you don't live off the side of the expressway. So it's a great tool. And again, we want to empower people to feel and actually make an impact. because so many people are like, the government's got to do something. Well, guess what? The government's kind of taking what comes to them, which is big monetary gain, and there's a lot of lobbyists that are pushing on it. So even if there's a good intention, it may not get through the ringer for quite some time. So, I mean, really, it's up to us. Being conscious consumers is the biggest one. I'm really conscious of who I give my money to, because I don't want to kill all the orangutans and I don't want to do things and support companies that are getting away with all of these really injustice activities and destroying the environment. And I mean, there's a lot of, very loose regulations. And if they make a product out of the country versus a country that has the regulations, they're getting away with a lot of stuff. So you really want to be able to support something, even if you're paying a couple pennies more or $1 more for something. Isn't it worth it for our future generations and for our own health? Can't spend money if you can't live and breathe air. So it's, figure it out.
Yeah. I mentioned that on a lot of podcasts that, like a lot of people say, voting for government is one of the most impactful things you can do, which, vote for who you believe in. But the real change is going to happen when us as consumers start to vote with our dollars. Government's not going to make any change unless there's money behind it, right? So if you start to support 100%. These brands that you believe in, these companies that are ethical companies, part of like 1% for the planet, certified B Corp, some of the certifications that you guys have, if we as consumers start to only buy these products, the other businesses will, one, wake up and start to catch up to these more sustainable initiatives. And two, that's when change is actually going to start to happen.
Oh, you're 1,000% right. No, I preach the same thing. We're the biggest impact if we just collectively come together and make those decisions, because that's why there's a lot of banks that are not allowed to fund any more oil and gas. There's a lot of investment funds that need an SGA, an ESG investment. So all of these things, and we've actually spoken with a lot of sustainability directors from municipalities, cities, and other big companies. All of them are brand new. And I'm like, why did, they're like, oh, I'm the first one in this position. They just created this position because their competitor has a sustainable director. So that's good. But they don't know what they're doing. They look at the IPCC, they look at, what other agencies or governments are doing and try to follow suit. So it's, we're starting to get there, which is really great. But yeah, we're absolutely the ones in control of that if we come together and actually make an impact together. And we're also 1% for the planet members too. So I do love that. And our other certifications, so people can understand, because we're a new brand, we need to show credibility. But we spent 3 years bringing this product to market, a little over 2.5, because we got all of our certifications, all of our lab tests done, double lab tests done, to make sure we're not selling a snake oil. And our other certifications, Greenwise. Greenwise is kind of like the equivalent of an organic stamp on a piece of produce. So it shows that, hey, this has been third-party tested. Even there have a third-party test that tests to make sure that we do what we do and we say what we are. And, we have 0 VOCs. And our performance test for our paint is like 9.4 to 9.6 by Coatings Group Research International. So we've been really, really meticulous about making sure that we actually walk the walk.
Leading by example, back to what we started with. That's what it's all about. So Tim, if we wanted to get one of these fancy new little car mufflers that you put on, are those available yet, or what's going on?
Yeah, we're actually that I moved away from to get into the paint, but we're actually coming back to that now. So I can't really say when that will be available. So we need to go through a whole slew and slurry of different tests and different developments to actually bring that out. But as I'm in my new lab accelerator next couple of months, I'm going to be working on that one as well. Right now, what we do offer is our Smog Armor Breathe paint, which is the air purifying paint that helps reduce odors and CO2 and VOCs. And our Smog Armor Care Plus, we are just launching now. We just painted the Top Doc Miami Clinic in the Four Seasons Hotel in Brickell, Miami. And that is our air purifying and the Care Plus is antimicrobial. So it has antimicrobial properties. So it actually reduces a lot of the bad stuff that floats around, like staph and E. coli, and excited to have that because a lot of people are really concerned. I think one of the big things that I appreciate from, whenever there's something bad, you get something good, awareness is the biggest thing that's come out of what we've done, and people really being a little more mindful and being aware of their surroundings, environment, and what's good, what's bad, and finally opening their eyes. Because let's face it, most people probably operate at 99 point something percent autopilot. So when you give them a quick turn or make them stop, it lets them open their eyes and smell the roses, hopefully.
And you guys sell both, like for residential, like if somebody wanted to repaint their room, and also bigger quantities, like if you wanted to do one of the murals that you guys have done.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, we do. We sell on the commercial side. So if you need a couple of gallons, and we sell on the the residential side for a couple of gallons, and the commercial side for bigger purposes. And we love to collaborate with artists, because artists and painters, painters more so, have a very short life expectancy because of such chemical warfare they go through every day painting, usually with really cheap common paint. If you look it up, their life expectancy is relatively short compared to ours. It's in the 60s, I believe. And it's because they're painting with, all these paints, and for them, they'll put on a mask once in a while, but you're essentially living inside a toxic box all the time.
Yeah.
But we love to work with artists because they really spread a big message, psychologically, and, on the wall, and they, have such cool colors, and they tell great stories. So we align with artists that have our morals and values and are all about the environment as well, and do really amazing artwork with them. So yeah, so exterior paint, interior paint, muralist, we're all about it.
I love that. I don't know about in Florida, but here in California, I've noticed that, I don't know if they are like electrical boxes that are on the side of the street, they're starting to be painted with different murals. And imagine if those were painted with this paint. Like imagine if everything was painted with this paint. I don't think that would, fix the whole, environmental problem, but it will certainly help by removing 95% of the problem, or of the carbon dioxide and the VOCs. So I absolutely love what you've created. I'm excited to hear more and to continue to watch the journey, because it's only like a year in, and you're still constantly evolving and making progress. So I'm very excited to see what the future holds for Smog Armor and Carbon Limit.
Appreciate it.
For those of you guys listening, I'll link to his YouTube channel, so you guys can see some of the videos, and also the Instagram, so you can see the murals. But go ahead and tell us where we can find more about you and the businesses.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we're all about going to our Instagram at Smog Armor, is a great place to see all those murals and what we've done. And we're all about collaborating too. So, as a 1% for the Planet member, we give back, and we like to help communities, and, we like to do projects. So we're always open for collaboration requests. We do get a lot, and we can't fulfill them all, but the right ones. And if it works out with our schedule, we love to work with other people. You can check me out at Tim at, actually my Instagram, it's Tim Sperry SA, I believe. I'm really not on social media that much, just because I can't spend that much time doing it yet. I'm really I'm lab like crazy chemist mode most of the time. And you can check us out at smogarmor.com as well. So yeah, I would love everyone to check it out. Feel free to connect with us. And I'm super excited to have the opportunity to share, and to share some good ideas with a like-minded person. So Taylor, love what you're doing. Keep it up too, brother.
Awesome, Tim. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And don't forget, live the captain's lifestyle.